The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
14:20 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds worth of sports talk to get you through your daily commute. Hot takes, recaps, best bets, and a little humor to get your day going in the right direction. Sit back, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. All right, 14:20 in the morning for this 9th day of November 2023. Today's show, as always, is brought to you by SeatGeek.com and the SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420POD at SeatGeek.com today and save yourself $20 on your first purchase over there at SeatGeek. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to BellyUpSports.com to save, or not to save anything, like, and save yourself the trouble going anywhere else to check out all the great articles, other great podcasts as well over there at Belly Up Sports. And thank you very much from each every one of us at Belly Up Sport or at Belly Up Sports and the 1420 World Headquarters for making us part of your day each and every day here at 1420 World Headquarters. We appreciate it very much. Anyways, forget everything that I said about the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was a couple days ago on Tuesday, I think it was, saying that their big win over the Tampa Bay Lightning coming back with Joseph Wall taking over in net, and there was going to be a turning point in their season. Turns out they just can't defend very well. They had a pretty rough 3 minutes of third period last night. Kind of showed who they were a little bit. We don't want to talk a whole bunch of Leafs hockey right now, but they lose 6-3 last night in the game. Maybe they should have won at home. They got to start stockpiling some wins at home. They're easier win at home than on the road for some reason, or maybe in Leafland might be a little bit different. A little bit more pressure on the Leafs to win games at home. There was a little thing yesterday before that game. Willie Styles about Willie Nylander. He took the train to the game last night. It was quite funny. There was a guy sitting. There was a picture up on Twitter that there was a guy sitting right next to him in a Leafs hat that didn't shake anything. Maybe doesn't like Nylander or whatever it was, but a guy in a Leafs hat was sitting next to Nylander and didn't even notice that the guy was there. And it's kind of funny because Deanna and I were talking about that, about how in bigger centers you can get away with doing that because most people don't know who you are. But if you're going to a local watering hole or going on a bus or a subway in a smaller town, everybody knows who you are, and they're calling all their friends to come and see you. So it's kind of funny how when you're in a major center, how the big stars can kind of blend into in the environment. I guess it's kind of funny to watch. But that Leafs team, they're frustrating. And I got an interview later on today. We'll get to that in half a second as well with a guy from Toronto talk about the Leafs and how their season's going so far. But last night I had a great talk with Nick Zararis of the Liberty Blue podcast. It's a Rangers podcast, and he's also part of the Locked On Flames and part of the Locked On network of sports shows. Get a chance to check all those Locked On things. They're great. Every day they have something out on your favorite teams. So make sure you check that out. But Nick and I had a great talk about the Rangers and the Flames and the polarizing situation that is the Jonathan Huberdeau situation with the Calgary Flames. He got benched. We talked about it yesterday a little bit when he got benched in the Flames win over Nashville 2 nights ago. Something to behold, something to watch. But it's one of those things that Nick and I had a really good talk about. But one other thing I want to talk about before we get to the interview I had with Nick is the big game tonight, and it's a big one here in the province of Alberta. Probably the biggest game in the history of the NHL between a team with 1 win and a team with 2 wins. Does you have the San Jose Sharks playing host to the Edmonton Oilers? Should be a beauty of a game tonight. I don't know why I'm so excited. I'll definitely have that one tuned in when Dave and I are recording our show tonight, because Dave's feeling a lot better for everybody who was concerned about that. He says he's feeling better, ready to go tonight, got his voice back. Anyways, but that game tonight should be an interesting one. It's going to go one of 2 ways. San Jose either wins a close one, as they did against Philadelphia a couple nights ago and got their first win of the season, or the Oilers come out and McDavid gets 6 points and Draisaitl scores 4 goals. And the Edmonton Oilers end up winning a 10-1, 10-2. Now, probably with the Oilers goaltending, a 10-4 win, because the San Jose Sharks have a penchant of giving up 10 goals, as they've done twice in the last week, once with Pittsburgh and once with the Vancouver Canucks. So that's going to be an interesting game to see how that all plays out tonight. And if the Oilers don't win that game, there is going to be hell to pay, because their farm team is just down in Bakersfield there. They might just go to take the plane from San Jose, probably the bus, probably find a Greyhound. They'll lose cruiser, take the bus to San Jose and just trade the team out for the guys in Bakersfield, and then the guys in Edmonton just call her good and switch things up before they end up playing the Seattle Kraken next. But yeah, it should be an interesting game, and I hope the Oilers win. I do. They're too good not to win. Their team it's flawed. We've talked about it a lot. I'm sure Dave and I'll talk about it a lot tonight, but it should be fun to watch. And I hope that the Oilers can pull it together, because it'll be better if everything's going better for the best player to ever play the game. So we'll see how that all turns out. But anyways, here is our interview that we did yesterday with Nick Zararis of the Liberty Blue podcast, the Rangers podcast, and the Locked On Flames over there at the Locked On Network. All right, we're happy to be joined by Nick Zararis of the Liberty Blue podcast, as well as for the part-time co-host and video producer of the Locked On Flames podcast. How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm very well. We're in the thick of the sports calendar. It's great right now.
No, things are great. Things are going really well everywhere around the world of sports. The Rangers, your New York Rangers, are flying a little bit, 9-2-1 right now. A little bit of adversity that we'll talk about in half a second. But if this team stayed healthy, could they keep up this pace, a la the Boston Bruins, what they had going on last year?
The formula is not the same. That would be the biggest reason I would say no. The Rangers have gotten by largely this first month through defense and goaltending, which it's good that you can play that type of hockey, but it's really hard to win that way consistently in today's NHL, where if you're relying on your goaltending and your defense to win a lot of games, your margin for error is really small. And that's not to say you can't win with defense and goaltending. It's just a lot harder to win that way. So no team is going to play at, like a 750 point pace like they are right now. But I think they've given themselves some room, and as you alluded to, they've got some bumps they're going to deal with. The goaltending situation kind of seems in flux based on the fact that both goalies are kind of dinged up at the moment, and they called up both AHL goalies to come up for the game against Minnesota tomorrow on Thursday. So they've gotten off to a good start. They've given themselves a little bit of room, some margin for error here, but I don't see them as the type of team that could go on the run that the Bruins did last year. No.
You have a team last night fresh off a 5-3 win over the Detroit Red Wings last night. They had a 5-0 lead. They tried to piss that one away in the third period, giving up 3 goals. Jonathan Quick, he's getting a little bit up there in age, not really his fault. But Artemi Panarin, a goal and assist, added to his point total last night. I think he's up to 20 now. 12-game point streak, a little bit behind the Gretzky 51-point streak to start the season off from years ago. But Panarin, he's a heck of a player. Is he the kind of guy who could put up 100, 120 points this year, no problem?
He put up 90 last year, and he didn't really play that well. Like, in all honesty, if you asked any Ranger fan, they would have told you, I wanted more from Panarin last year. They played him with Trocheck for the bulk of the season. Then they moonlighted Kane, Tarasenko, Kakko, Lafreniere on the right at various points. And the biggest problem they've had with Panarin since he got here is they haven't had a center for him to play with of his skill level. When you're playing with somebody who's as good as Panarin, you need somebody who can complement that, who's dynamic, a skater, a playmaker. And Vinny Trocheck's a really solid hockey player, but he's not dynamic. He's good at every phase of the game, but it's straight line, using his body, making plays with his physical ability, as opposed to his hockey IQ, which is why when you've seen Panarin at his best, it's when they have him and Fox on the ice at the same time, and they can really tilt the ice in the Rangers' favor. And for the first 2-3 weeks before Filipino got concussed last week, Chytil was doing a great job riding shotgun, and Lafreniere playing the best hockey of his career, riding with Panarin and with Chytil. Now it's a little bit different. He's still putting up the counting stats, but this is the best Panarin's played as a Ranger probably since the first year he got here, at least through the first month, because the point pace is outrageous. He's not going to maintain this, but he should be well on his way to a 90 to 100 point season.
One guy you brought up there is Kaapo Kakko there. He hasn't done really anything in his career. He's in his 5th year now. He's a first-round draft pick, 2nd overall. I think he went that year, 2019. And he really hasn't amounted to a whole bunch. He got demoted from the second line for last night's game. And he has not lived up to the expectations. I think you got a couple of guys out. Lafreniere hasn't really done it either so far. Has the Rangers' recent like those 2 recent guys, have they been somewhat of a disappointment to Rangers and the Ranger fans?
They've definitely been viewed as disappointments, though I think the larger consensus is there's an understanding that the Rangers really tried to speed things up after they won the Kakko lottery, where in a normal year, you pick 2nd overall, you don't sign a Panarin, trade for Trouba, trade for Adam Fox, all in the same offseason, you pick second overall, because those are aggressive moves of a team that's trying to win right away. And the Rangers, for better or for worse, didn't really take that rebuild mindset that seriously, because they did 1 year of that. They took their medicine in 2018, where the team was really bad. They picked second overall. They drafted Kakko, who he's a good defensive forward. I don't know if the counting stats will ever come, and you don't pick a defensive forward second overall. As good as he is at defense and as good as he is on puck possession, you pick a guy second overall, you want at least 50 even strength points from a winger, even if they are elite defensively, to really be worth it. But yeah, the consensus would be they are both talented hockey players, but based on the opportunities they've been given and the type of team the Rangers are, frankly, they just haven't gotten a lot of run in situations. I mean, Lafreniere, maybe 2 minutes a game of power play in comparison to some other teams. Over the summer, I was looking into this. Lafreniere's played the least ice time of any first overall pick since Patrick Stefan, which is 98, 99, something like that. So
that didn't turn out very well for Stefan.
No, it didn't. He just had Lafreniere has not played a lot of hockey in comparison. And last point on this, real quick, him and Kakko both really got screwed by the pandemic, because those are the most crucial years of their development. Your draft 1, draft 2 years are really crucial for developing that arc. What we typically think of development as a linear arc, getting up to a peak. You plateau out in your mid-20s, and then about 30, it starts to go back down. The arc of their trajectory really got less steep because they lost a year and a half plus of development. And when they came back in that 56 game season, they both were getting less ice time than guys like Colin Blackwell and guys who are, all due respect, they're decent NHL hockey players. But if you pick a guy first, second overall, you got to let them take their lumps or they're never going to get better.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you look at some of these guys draft. You look at Shane Wright out in Seattle there, and he basically he missed it out on a year not playing junior, and he thought he was going to go first overall. He ended up going fourth to Seattle, and now he's down in Coachella Valley. He hasn't played, because even his last year at junior, he didn't play a bunch of hockey. And you have a whole group of a group of kids, I guess you could say, that did lose out a lot. I think that gets lost a lot with the average fan, saying, why is this guy doing this and why isn't that guy doing that? Well, if you don't play for a year in like you said, in your development time, you're going to lose out, because playing in the National Hockey League is hard. And if you lose out on a year, and it happens even with older guys, you see when they hold out for contracts and everything else, they tend to lose that step and never seem to get it back.
It's hard to get back up to game speed. You think about Lafreniere, his draft year, the OHL season got canceled in March, and he didn't play in a competitive hockey game until January 28th of the following year. He went 9 months without playing in a competitive hockey game. The only things he was able to do was skate on his own. And that was his draft plus 1 year was a total loss. And the Rangers haven't done themselves any favors with the way they've handled these young guys, but it's not just a Rangers issue. There are large swaths of the 2020, 2021, and 2019 drafts who just aren't on their expected trajectories because they lost a year plus of their development.
Defenseman Adam Fox, he got dinged up last week against the Carolina Hurricanes, knee on knee with Sebastian Aho. I don't want to say it was dirty, but it wasn't clean. It was one of those ones. Like, he's not a dirty guy by any stretch of the imagination. And he stuck up for himself. He got in a fight later on that game. One of those I have to punch somebody, so I'm going to get punched. One of those deals. Fox has been all world, Norris Trophy kind of guy, no matter what, every year he's been playing. He's a great player. He was going to put up some great big numbers, 11 points so far in 10 games. Is he the kind of guy that the Rangers have to find a way, because they piled up some wins, as you said, 9-2-1 already. Can they find a guy who can step up, not to that level, but who can come up for the Rangers and be that kind of a guy right now to say, okay, I have to get a power play point every other game kind of a deal?
They've effectively tried to recreate it in the aggregate, where they're going to play Trouba and Miller more as a pair at 5-on-5. They're going to lighten Lindgren's load. They brought in Erik Gustafsson over the summer, who was supposed to be quarterback, your second power play, third defensive pair, 18-ish minutes a game, even strength. Had a really good season in Washington last year under Laviolette. Part of the reason they brought him in was Laviolette vouched for him, and they needed somebody to fill that spot. Zach Jones was really good last night against Detroit. Very noticeable, considering he was really bad in the game against Minnesota on Saturday night. So they're effectively trying to recreate it in the aggregate, where Gustafsson will get some power play work, and they'll probably end up with some combination of Trouba, Miller, and Zach Jones on that second power play unit if they're out there. But as far as even strength, there's not really any way to simulate what Adam Fox does or recreate it or even try it through the work of like 5 or 6 guys, because when you look at the impact of Fox on every single forward on the Rangers, on their scoring chances, the more detailed statistics, they just don't have the puck as much, because when Adam Fox is on the ice, the Rangers have the puck, and it's not feasible to try and they're going to have to fundamentally alter how they're going to play without him, because he is that good. They have to adjust how they play without him, because there is no way to recreate what he does. Even if the Rangers have a really good defense, 1 through 6, it's one of the better units in the league when everybody's healthy. If Zach Jones is your 7th defenseman, that's a pretty good unit. But when you lose your best guy and probably your best player other than Shesterkin, you're really going to have to get creative in how you make up for that loss.
You brought up Trouba, and he's the kind of guy, and I'm going off base here a little bit, but he's the kind of guy who hasn't put up huge offensive numbers. He'll get 35 points, maybe 40 this year kind of deal. Not like the 50 he got before from coming over from Winnipeg and then getting the big contract, but team captain the whole bit. And last year he showed a little bit of a little more grit than usual on that night when he's throwing his helmet across the ice and everything else was going on there. And I think that's kind of the kind of guy you want on your hockey team when push comes to shove and you say, hey guys, F around and find out kind of deal. And Trouba's a great leader. Is he at his peak offensively wise, or is this what you see with Trouba? He's a gritty player, and this is all you're going to get. And there's nothing wrong with what you're getting. Is this the ceiling that Trouba's at?
It's complicated because in a vacuum, the Rangers traded for him with the assumption he was going to be the first pair right-handed defenseman. They had no idea Adam Fox was going to be this good when they got him from Carolina. They thought Adam Fox would be a useful NHL player, that he might have some offensive upside. If they had known Adam Fox was going to be one of the 3 or 4 best defensemen in the entire world, there's a good chance they don't trade for Trouba at all in 2018. So it's a really interesting sliding doors comparison. He's never going to put up the gaudy counting stats the way he did in Winnipeg, because he doesn't QB the first power play. That's a good 10 to 15 points right there. If you're the quarterback of the first power play as a defenseman, that's 10 to 15 points minimum on a good team that you're losing from your totals. Trouba, 30 points. The only real issue with Trouba is they're paying him way too much. Other than that, what he gives you, you take that. He's been a lot better this year than he was last year. He played the first 40 or so games of last year with a nagging back injury. Then after the All-Star break, tightened it up a lot better defensively. But he's been a lot better this year. He's been a lot more noticeable as well, making more noticeable defensive plays and just putting himself in a better position. Whereas last year, he was kind of just looking for the big hit, which is great when you land it. But if you miss, you're giving your partner a 2-on-1 going behind you.
One of his teammates in Winnipeg, Wheeler, there, he's been okay. Like, he hasn't done a whole bunch and everything else. Now that he's playing a little bit more because he's taking Kakko's line on that spot in that second line. Is he in the twilight of his career, the back 9 per se? Because he pointless so far, I believe. Maybe 1, maybe 2 points so far. Hasn't got a ton of ice time. He was in the 4th line. He's going to get a chance to play. What's your thoughts on him? He's not going to hurt your team, hurt the Rangers. A little bit of playoff experience coming out that Winnipeg went anywhere most years, but he's a solid player. What's your thoughts on him?
If Blake Wheeler's your 9th or 10th best forward, you're a pretty good hockey team. That's been my mindset the entire summer. For what they're paying him, what they're asking him to do, he's perfectly adequate for that. He's better, frankly, than a lot of the guys the Rangers have used in that type of role in years past. And it makes the rest of the lineup better because it's putting guys in roles they are better situated for. If Blake Wheeler's playing 3rd line for you, that means Barclay Goodrow's on your 4th line. That means Jimmy Vesey's on your 4th line. And those guys both fill useful roles. They definitely have utility. But when you're playing those guys further up in your lineup and in situations where they're going to have to chip in goals occasionally, it's not as great. Wheeler hasn't done a lot, but he hasn't been a net negative. He doesn't cost a lot of money, and they value the intangibles he brings. So at the very least, he's better than what they've had. I can't really complain, even if he's not doing a whole lot.
You bring up VC there, Jimmy VC, and he's that little rat rodent who just won't go away. He came with some pretty big fan for coming in the league, coming out of college, then he played in Boston, then he played for the Leafs, and then he just won't go away with the Rangers. It seems every time he turns around, he's back with the Rangers somehow, some way. But his career didn't really. He's made a career. He's made some money. Don't get around there. Like I'd trade him any day, obviously. But his career didn't really take off with the notoriety he was getting coming out of college.
No, the one thing I point out to everybody when we talk about Jimmy Vesey is the year he won the Hobie Baker, two teammates split the vote. There were two guys on Boston College that year that finished second and third. They played on the same line. They had very comparable stats. They split the vote. That's why Jimmy Vesey won the Hobie Baker that year. He's a solid hockey player. He's carved out a nice niche for himself as a defense first guy. He never really had the goaltending, not the goaltending, the goal scoring prowess that he showed his first year in New York, where he got a lot of ice time. He played some power play. He was a solid NHL player. The Rangers shedded some salary when they traded him to Buffalo. Then Buffalo waived him. He went to Toronto, to Vancouver, to the Devils, and the
I
Rangers brought him.
forgot he was in Vancouver. Actually, yeah, that's a good
He
point.
was
I
a
forgot
waiver
about that.
claim.
Yeah.
Toronto put him on waivers. He went to Vancouver. He went to the Devils, and he took a PTO with the Rangers last year, and he played himself into a contract, and he got a 2-year extension. Not a lot of money, but he's a useful hockey player. He doesn't cost a lot, and he's better than some of the guys the Rangers have used in that role in the past, guys like Ryan Reeves, guys like Ryan Carpenter, where you know what you're getting when you bring Ryan Reeves on your team, and it's not hockey. It's not for hockey reasons.
It's not anything right now. Yeah. Well, you look at what he's putting out. Because I'm a Leafs guy. Like you look at what Reeves is doing with the Leafs, and it like even that little situation I had last week with Marchand, and nobody did anything and that's the one reason why Reeves is there is to because we talked about it on the show before we got on the air that Matthew Tkachuk ran rampant through the playoffs last year, doing whatever he wanted against every team they played against, and nobody was there tapping him on the leg, say, hey, don't do that. And that's what Reeves was going to do. And let's get into that a little bit. Like, is there a guy in the Rangers that with a little bit of snot, a little bit of sandpaper to their game come playoff time this time around? They lost the first round last year. Like, so let's not say the Rangers are going to the Stanley Cup Finals by any means, but they have a really good team. But they need, I think they don't have that snot guy, that sandpaper guy to go and give a guy a tap and lace to say, hey, fuck around and find out.
That's been the issue forever with them. They have really good players. Guys like Kreider, Zibanejad, Panarin, Fox. Those are really talented. All they would be the best player on most of the teams in the entire not every team, but most teams in the NHL. Really good hockey players. But Kreider shows that snarl in very small doses. Jacob Trouba shows that snarl, but it's always in situations where the game's already over. He more than one occasion last year, massive hit, fight. The game's already over. We're losing by 3. We're losing by 4. It's great that you wanted to send a message going into the next game, but you got to do that when the game still has a chance of being going the other way. Like in game 7 against the Devils, he lined up Meyer, took his head off, and the game was 3-0 at that point with 4 minutes to go. If you want to send a message, you got to do it when the game's still salvageable. Otherwise, it just kind of looks like
first shift kind of
deal.
Yeah,
exactly. If you want to send a message, you got to do it when the game's still hanging in the balance, not when it's over. The one guy I will emphasize, Will Cooley, the guy, second round pick 2 years ago now. He's been noticeable, and he brings a little bit of that. He has that jam. He likes to bang in the corners. He's noticeable in that respect, but hasn't been any tussles yet. I don't think the Rangers have a fight yet, actually, now that I think about it. But that's not really part of their game, and it has been an issue at points where they don't have a guy who's willing to go down low, take those cross checks in the back around the net mouth, or win those pucks in the corner. And that's been a real issue at times for them because they're a skill team. It has come up repeatedly, different coaches, different groups of stars, and it has been an issue.
It seems that people forget about that. Like I know the game has changed a lot. Obviously, like I don't know how old you are, but I know how old I am. I remember when the game had a lot more grit to it, and there was guys who were just there to fight. And I'm glad they got rid of that, where there's the stage fights and everything else, because it was no part of the game should have that anymore. But there was the teams that end up winning the Stanley Cup the last few years. They had just enough grit, just enough meanness, just enough. Hey, look out! Don't screw with our guys. We'll go and get your guy. Like you look at that Vegas team that won last year, their defense was big and mean, and they didn't mind being big and mean. And a lot of teams, I think they still need that snarl in their game that a lot of teams don't have. And there's not a lot of players in the league that have that little bit of grit. Like you look at McKinnon though, like he's a guy in Colorado. He has that enough pent up frustration, I guess, in his game all the time. He seems like he's half a second away from scoring a goal and punching the face in the in the same breath all the time. The Rangers don't seem to have that guy, like you said. And there's a lot of teams that don't have that. And with the way the game is now, with the small-ish forwards, I think that a lot of teams would be more inclined to go and get a guy, because you look at just across the river there in New Jersey, they got those Hughes boys who are highly skilled, highly talented, but they're little. They're little, and they're easy, not easy to get off the puck, but they would be pretty, like, come playoff time. I don't know if they're going to have that kind of much success.
You saw it against Carolina. The way you stop a fast team like the Devils is you grind them into a pulp. You dump the puck in, you make their defensemen turn their back to you, and you forecheck them into oblivion. Carolina got them out of that series in 5 games last year because the Devils were not prepared for that. They were just in a track meet series with the Rangers where they spent 7 games trading scoring chances going up and down, and whichever team put more of those in the net won that given night. And then they got into a series against Carolina, who wants to be in a rock fight because they don't have the high-end talent of some of the teams they're going to play up against. They don't have the elite goaltending you might need to steal a game against a better team. The biggest need is grit with utility, because it's all on a spectrum. Like, there's no disputing Ryan Reeves is the toughest player in hockey right now. But other than being tough, he's not giving you anything. You need a little something more than just that toughness. You mentioned Kachuk. We've talked about McKinnon. Nikita Kucherov comes to mind, where you are Brad Marchand comes to mind, where you can put up 70 to 100 points, and you can also hold your own, where guys won't mess with you. And if you need to, you will punch someone in the face because that's what your team needs at that given moment. The Rangers don't have a guy like that.
You talked about the track meet. I went to a junior hockey game here in Lethbridge, where I am, and it seemed like it was all the same player. Like, they're all the same kid that are coming out of junior now, and they go up and down the ice, highly skilled, can skate like nobody's business anymore. But it just seems like you just have the exact same player with very little of a personality, I guess is one way of putting it. Do you find that a lot with a lot of rookies that you see coming into the league, or a lot of guys in training camps that you watch, that it's the same kid doing the same thing, more skilled than they've ever been, more skilled than you'd ever think, and faster and everything else, but they're very cookie cutter nowadays. Do you find that?
I find that's true based on where guys kind of come from, like what junior league they play in or what league in Europe they play in. That I definitely notice there's a similarity in guys who typically you come from the WHL, you're used to a little bit more of that up and down, less defense type of style versus the Q, which is a little tighter. And then in Europe, it's entirely different because bigger ice surfaces. It's a little bit of a slower pace game. So I definitely think that's true as far as where you play your developmental years, like 15 to 18. That I definitely find true, where based on where you spend those years is typically the archetype you're going to fall into.
Yeah, no, I just noticed that the last couple weeks back. I'm like, oh, it's the exact same thing, and it was both teams just doing this, like, because they all played against each other, and that's the other thing. That these guys play each other with. Or against each other so much over the years, and then with each other with all the U18 and the this championship and that championship, and they're all friends. So there's not very much of the, like I said earlier, the snarl against each other, because they're all buddies now. When it can compare to what it was 30 years ago, when everybody hated each other and they weren't going out and smoking cigars and drinking with each other after the game. Like, it's just a lot different. We talked a little bit about the Rangers goaltender, with their situation. I thought it was a great pickup, going out and getting Stanley Cup winner Jonathan Quick. It can't hurt. Like, it can't hurt having that kind of a pedigree on the bench. And he got thrown into a game last night, and he's put up some really good numbers so far. What's your thoughts on Quick?
I was very wrong about him. Over the summer, I said I wasn't particularly interested. He looked pretty, just frankly, bad last year. That last year was his worst year, and was the latest in a 5-year period of continual downward trending of, okay, he's a goalie, he's 35. I don't see it anymore. I'm very glad I was wrong about that. The Rangers tightening up defensively has done wonders for him. He had an atrocious preseason. His save percentage in the preseason was 805. So the fact he's playing this well in the regular season, I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, because obviously this is a world, one of the 64 best goalies in the world, because he's in the NHL. But I didn't expect him to play this well. All you ever need from your backup goalie on a playoff team, if you can flirt with a 905, that's all I need. That's really all I need from a goalie. And if Quick is going to do that, that's all you can ask for.
Well, that's one of those things. Like I talk about it all the time. I'm a goalie hugger. There's no getting around that. Like if you stop all the easy ones and a few of the hard ones, that's all you can really ask for out of a goalie when it comes down to it. Because a lot of teams don't have one goalie, let alone two. There's a little problem up there in Edmonton, not too far from where I am. They got going on there. What an absolute disaster that team's turned out to be. But the long ways to playoffs, obviously. And is there like what do the Rangers need? Do you think? You talked about some snarl. Is there like what do they need elsewhere to maybe make a little bit of a run this year, separate themselves from everybody else in that Eastern Conference?
They probably need one more forward, and that really seems like me say this is the best Rangers team on paper when everyone's healthy in quite a while. If they are running Blake Wheeler as their ninth forward, if you want to bring in one more guy and bump Blake Wheeler down to the fourth line, and then Tyler Pitlick or Barclay Goodrow or Jimmy Vesey's a healthy, sure. Other than that, you're not changing anything else particularly. I don't think they're going to be in a situation where they're going to be able to take on anybody particularly expensive unless they're going to pay a draft pick or two to facilitate a third team taking some salary. I know I've tinkered with the idea of Adam Henrique in that type of role and moving Blake Wheeler down, somebody a little older but expensive, but defense first, can give you a little bit of offense. That's kind of the profile of the forward they need. I understood what they were doing in bringing in Kane and Tarasenko last year, but the problem with those types of moves is those are talented hockey players, and they were already a talented team, but they weren't conscious of the fit of those guys. Kane put up okay counting stats. Tarasenko put up okay counting stats, but they reconfigured the entire team to accommodate those two guys. And that was part of the reason they lost to the Devils was they didn't have any of that real synergy you need going into the playoffs.
There's
It's
only
always
one
the
puck.
team. Exactly. You can only have so many guys who need the puck to be effective. When Kane and Tarasenko don't have the puck, they are giving you nothing. They need more well-rounded guys, and that's the thing. If they're going to go with the group they have, add one more guy. You keep Kakko and Lafreniere in that top six. You bump Wheeler down. Or if you want, you go get a luxury fourth liner. You go get this year's equivalent of a Tanner Jeannot, a Barclay Goodrow, that type of guy from teams of years past. If you go get like an Andrew Cogliano type from the Colorado team that won the cup a couple of years ago, that type of guy, sure. But the Rangers don't need anything crazy. They have played really well so far. It's just a matter of when these guys get back from their injuries, how healthy are they going to be? How much time are they going to need to get back up to what they were playing at? And then, it's a long season. Weird things happen, but this is the best I've felt about a Rangers team in quite a while on paper and in terms of results.
So what you're saying is you're not going out and grabbing a Phil Kessel by any means.
I will always have a soft spot for Phil.
I like Phil.
The guy,
I like Phil a lot. Yeah.
Phil the guy. That's not the worst idea in the world. He's only going to cost you $725. He said, I don't care if I play every day. There are worse guys to have as the 13th forward than Phil Kessel. I would not be opposed to that in the slightest. He is somebody they could afford right now. The issue they have with Fox being on IR is they're not accruing cap space right now. So every day that Fox isn't eligible to come back till I think the week of American Thanksgiving, but in that time they're not accruing cap space every single one of those days. So that's going to take away from who they could potentially claim, who they could potentially trade for down the road, or even bringing in a guy right now.
That cap, it's every team. They got to find some way to do something with that because it's I don't want to say it's ruining things, but you're so hamstrung to make hockey trades and make deals and everything else because of the cap. I wouldn't be like me and my co-host of the other show that I do. We talk about the salary cap in all the sports, and one of the things I thought that hockey should do is if you draft and develop a guy, you should be able to pay him whatever you want and doesn't go against your cap. That was just one thought that we had.
Yeah.
Just why not? You know what? If you like, you look what happened to the Chicago Blackhawks after they won Stanley Cups. They were forced to get rid of guys that they drafted and developed, and it's not fair to be penalized because you're successful. And it doesn't make any sense why they can't come up with an idea to do something like that because it doesn't ruin things, but just makes things not as good as it could be.
I completely agree with you. The NBA has that. They have what's called bird rights, where the Celtics refuse to let Larry Bird be a free agent, and they talked the NBA into making a carve out for this, where when you draft a guy, you can go over the salary cap to keep a guy if you drafted him and he's been on your team X number of years. So that's a workaround. Gary's been saying the cap's going up for my entire life, and maybe we're going to go up $2 or $3 million this year.
But what's
That's
that?
one more player on every team, maybe.
Right. That's 600 grand for how many guys, right? It's really
Exactly.
nothing. Like it's going to spread out and it's not a big deal. We'll get off the Rangers for a second, get on another team that you cover and you follow with the Calgary Flames. They're just up the road for me. That is an absolute it's not as bad as Edmonton, which is a little bit further up the road for me, but Calgary's in a situation now, and I quite like what happened last night with Jonathan Huberdeau getting put on the bench, and the coach said, you know what? Yeah, I lost with you. We can lose without you. Have a seat, tattoo your ass on the pine here, and we'll figure things out. In the third period last night, the Flames scored 3 goals, and they ended up winning the hockey game last night. Yeah, one was an empty netter by Kadri. But so, what's your thoughts on that train wreck that is the Jonathan Huberdeau situation up in Calgary?
It's fascinating. He's one of the most talented hockey players in the entire world. He has elite IQ. He knows what he needs to do with the puck. But ever since he got to Calgary, it just doesn't look right. No matter who they play him with, and believe me, they tried every single forward on the
Everything.
team last year. Every single Huberdeau played with, I want to say, 18 different forwards over the course of last season. They have tried everything in the world to try and get him going. They changed coaches. They are changing their tactics, what they're asking their forwards to do defensively to encourage him to create more offensively. But I do think there's a real argument that Huberdeau is a really good player, but he is a passenger. When you go back and look, and I was reading somebody's work about Huberdeau in relation, they wrote it right when the Flames traded Tkachuk for him, about how Barkov is the one who does a lot of the legwork. Barkov was the one who would carry the puck into the zone, and defenses would cue in on, which gives Huberdeau a lot more space to operate. And Huberdeau doesn't have that natural person to play with who's going to carry the puck into the zone. Calgary is one of the most dump and chase heavy teams in the entire league. Even if Daryl's not the coach anymore, that's still the case. And they haven't found a way to utilize Huberdeau's skill set. And it's part of what I was talking about before with the Rangers, where you can take somebody who's really talented, but if you drop them in an environment with skill sets that don't complement theirs or strategies that don't complement theirs, it's like asking a fish to climb a tree. A fish is really good at swimming. It can't climb the tree. That's what it is with Huberdeau. He's a good hockey player, but what the Flames are asking him to do, he's not particularly good at, and it's why it looks so uncomfortable.
You know, you found it. I remember when that trade happened a couple of summers ago there, and you're like, holy, okay. You kind of heard there was rumblings that Tkachuk wasn't coming. You know, didn't he ask for a trade? Because he didn't ask me. He said, I'm not signing, so you better do something with me. And then when the trade happened, it was a Friday night, and I remember going, geez, that's a good deal. And then you go, huh, why did they offer their leading scorer? Like it just seemed that Florida was like way too like, yeah, here you go. Here's our guy. You can have him, no problem. It just seemed a bit odd to me that was the deal that was made. And conspiracy theory, podcast, a little bit of clickbait here and there, but it's the thing with Huberdeau is it maybe a situation where, yeah, he's really good at hockey. He's a fantastic player. Is it maybe a situation a little bit? You know what? I like it, and I'm getting paid a lot, but I don't like it that much.
It's always tough when you start getting into those types of questions because you don't know.
You
You
don't know.
can never know what's going on in a guy's head. He's trying, he's engaged when he's on the ice. He's just not making good plays. One of the things that was in that detailed breakdown I was talking about before was just how he receives the puck and the type of position his hands are in when he receives the puck. Something he's really gotten into a bad habit of doing is receiving the puck with his legs in a way where he can't skate. He's receiving the puck flat-footed and he can't make a play without pivoting, and that's giving yourself away. When you receive the puck flat-footed, you don't have an opportunity to make another play other than moving the puck, which allows the defense to adjust and account for that. And it's just those bad habits creep in. The bad habits creep in. You start losing your confidence, which has definitely been part of it as well. His confidence is shot at this point. That's a real part of it. That's difficult. It's really hard to try and quantify and understand on a hockey level what your confidence does to you. But a guy who doesn't feel good about his game is going to have a harder time than a guy who feels good about their game. It's one of those things that's baked into sports that you have to do whatever you can to try and find what's going to get him going. And the Flames have tried pretty much everything they can.
That's the thing. Like, you don't lose your skill level, and that's with anything in life. Really, you lose that space, that 6 inches or 8 inches between your ears, where it can really go south on you. And I think that's the thing with Huberdeau. And like, the thing is, it's early in that contract. Like, they're only 2.5 months in, or a month and a half in, sorry, to that contract. That's 8 years. Like, 8 years of that. Like, most of these contracts on the back end, they don't really work out anyways. But this is a situation where maybe just like, let's this is what we got already. I don't know if the Flames can cut ties right off the bat and maybe make a deal somewhere and see if we can't get something else done. Because if the start is bad, the end's going to be even worse.
It's a fascinating situation. There's a real argument the Flames should have hard reset 2 summers ago. Instead of getting roster players like Uyghur and Huberdeau in return for Tkachuk, they should have asked for draft picks and prospects. There's a real argument they should have started unwinding their position this summer, trading Hanifin, trading Lindholm, trading Backlund, and kickstarting a genuine rebuild attempt. No team in the NHL is going to be able to withstand losing 2 100-point players in one offseason.
None.
They lost Gaudreau and Tkachuk. If any team in the league, if the Oilers lost McDavid and Draisaitl, if the Leafs lost Nylander and Matthews, or Marner and Matthews, whatever, any team loses 200-point guys, you're never going to be as good as you were the year before. It's just not, it's not doable. There's maybe 15 guys who record 100 points in a season, and that's because the scoring is it's a lot easier to score now. They were in a position where they could have gone hard reset, said, we're going to take a step back for a year or two, and then we're really going to attack it 2024, 2025. And that's when we'll start using our draft picks to trade for stars, trade for guys with more expensive contracts. Instead, they opted for give us the sugar high. Let's put a Band-Aid on this. Let's just try and squeak into the playoffs. And then if we get in the playoffs, anything can happen. I know part of that was them trying to get the new arena taken care of, and they couldn't really do that if they were a really bad team. So the Flames have also, that's part of the calculus for the Flames, unfortunately, for their fans, is it's not just about the hockey results. Some of this is just the ownership cares more about having they care more about having 3 home playoff games in the first round if they get to 7 games than they do about winning the Stanley Cup, which is unfortunate because it's a dedicated fan base. They've been top 10 in attendance 15 of the last 16 years, something like that. And they've only made the playoffs, 7 of those 15 years. It's a really dedicated fan base.
The problem you got in Calgary, it's been this way for a long time. In Vancouver had the same thing. Is that you have mediocrity just brings mediocrity, and that's where the Flames are right now. They're just mediocre, and they got nothing going for them because a mediocre team gets you a middle of the run draft pick, and then nothing else, right? And it's hard to draw good free agents because you're mediocre. Yeah, you can offer them lots of money, but these guys all make a lot of money no matter what, and they want to win somewhere. Mediocrity breeds mediocrity.
100%. That's the thing. The Flames' goal has just been to be mediocre. The way they've built this team, they have a lot of talented hockey players, but they are more concerned with just getting the playoffs. It's not, okay, we're good. How can we get better? It's we're good. And that's it. There is no second part of that sentence.
Yeah, and like you talked about the new building, now they have a chance because it's signed, sealed, and delivered now where the new building's coming. It might not be a bad thing to maybe sell off some parts and pieces and then build something and advertise. You know what? We might not be good now, but when the new building is good, new building, new look, new attitude, or whatever you want to market it, it might not be a bad idea like right now to say, you know what? We got a rookie head coach. He'll be the fall guy, and like 3 years from now he won't, because he probably won't be around. Like it's just the way it is, and it might be a good spot right now for the Flames to say, you know what, it's time to break things down a little bit. I don't know how you do it with Kadri at 7.5, and then you have Huberdeau at 10.5, but there it is. I mean,
those are your placeholders. Those 2 guys are your placeholders. You can turn Lindholm and Hanifin into 2 first-round picks, prospects, maybe a second, a third, etc. You can turn those 2 guys into genuine assets to kickstart your rebuild. You can turn Zadorov into a third or a fourth at the deadline. You can turn Tanev into a third or a fourth at the deadline. That's 5 more assets than you have right now if you do all of that, if this season continues to go the way it is.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like they thought they had a team and then they didn't, because when Gaudreau, and things aren't going so well for old Johnny Hockey in Columbus, he got benched. Maybe they should just trade Gaudreau back to Calgary straight up for Huberdeau. Might not be a bad change location for the 2 of them. Who knows? it's crazy to think that like the one thing you as you get a little bit older in life, the grass isn't always greener. It's just different, and I think Huberdeau's finding that out.
That was a weird situation because everybody assumed Flyers are Devils, 100%. He's a Jersey guy. He wants to be on the East Coast. And the Devils didn't make a competitive offer. The Flyers never made an offer. The Islanders never made an offer. And he looked around and said, Columbus, lower taxes, and that's why he's in Columbus. That's really it. That's the only reason in my mind he's not a Flame right now is he thought there was going to be a better market for him. There wasn't, and he had to settle because he didn't want to look stupid going back to Calgary after stringing them out like that.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Nick, this is a lot of fun. Tell everybody what you got going on.
You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Zararis, host the Liberty Blue podcast, which is Ranger stuff, Locked On Flames, which I'm going to record as soon as I get off of this call, where we cover the Flames every single day. I'm also starting this week doing the Locked On NHL power rankings every week, where we'll talk all 32 teams in the NHL, rank them. I do Giant stuff. I do Jet stuff. I am a sports media, what's the word I'm looking? Swiss Army knife. There we go. I couldn't think of the expression. I do everything. I was
going to say whore, but you want to say Swiss Army knife? That's fine.
Hey, I get paid okay to do this. It's not just about the money. I do genuinely love talking about sports.
No, there's a lot of that Locked On network. The way you guys do things there with everything that's going on in sport. Like as you can see with the crap behind me, I'm a Yankee dork from way back. I listen to that Locked On every day. And it's such a great, an easy thought process. Like it's so simple. This is your team every day. Here it is. It's fantastic. Locked On. It's unbelievable. I love it. Yeah. So so thanks very much for doing this. I didn't know you'd do another show tonight, but make sure you guys will do something maybe around Christmas time. See how the two teams are doing that you follow, and we'll go from there. Thanks a lot for doing this, Nick.
Of course. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man. We'll talk later.
Later.
There it is, Nick Zararis of the Liberty Blue podcast and the Locked On Flames podcast to talk about the Rangers and the polarizing situation with Jonathan Huberdeau. It should be interesting to see how that all turns out. It's up to him now how he comes out that next game out. I think it's tomorrow night against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Leafs they can't defend very well, so it might be a night for Huberdeau to go out and do something. But yeah, you just never know how that's all going to be put together because it's unbelievable what they got going on. And for, like I said yesterday, to bench him was a gutsy move by rookie head coach Ryan Huska. But that's the only play he's got in his bag to go out and do that. You can't sit while you could sit him in the stands. Is the next thing, maybe embarrass the heck out of him. He wants to play and show a little bit of pride. But no, thanks once again to Nick for coming on the show. We'll have to have him on later on to talk some Rangers hockey. Once again, that Rangers team's really, really good. They just the parts and pieces here and there. But like we talked about the salary cap situation, they got to figure something out. Old Jerry Bettman, he's got to figure something out to get some teams out of that salary cap hell because you do get some parity within the league, but I think it's just a bad look for a league that's always trying to find its way and look like one of the big boys, and they stumble and fumble away around the thing. So anyways, here's a word from our friends over at SeatGeek.
SeatGeek is the ticketing app for fans like the High Five Strangers guy. Game-winning interception, first down, just a nice solid tackle. If you're in arm's length, you will be swapping skin with this extrovert. You see, he knows SeatGeek got him a great deal on tickets, so he can focus on what he does best, smacking palms. SeatGeek handles the tickets to sports, concerts, and more, so fans can fan.
Once again, thank you very much to SeatGeek for sponsoring the 1420 Sports Bar podcast and 1420 in the morning. Remember to use promo code 1420pod over at SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app today and save yourself $20 on your first purchase. Let's get to some birthdays and on this days and get you guys out of here. Here we go. On this day in 1996, Evander, the real deal, Holyfield, upset Mike Tyson with an 11th round knockout in Las Vegas, Nevada to regain the WBA heavyweight title. Leading up to the fight, dubbed finally, Tyson was a 5-1 favorite over Holyfield and came out trying to end it early and sent Holyfield towards the ropes with a solid right to the head. That's the last time in the fight that Tyson would stun Holyfield. In the 6th round, Tyson would be cut by a headbutt that the referee would call accidental, and then later in the round, Holyfield caught Tyson with a left that would send him to the mat for only the second time in his career. To that point, Holyfield continued his dominance in the 10th round, basically leaving Tyson out on his feet. The fight was stopped in the 11th round after Holyfield landed another brutal extended group of punches, combinations, everything else, giving Holyfield one of the most famous upsets in the history of boxing, and also making him the first person since Muhammad Ali to win a heavyweight championship 3 times on this day in 1996. It wasn't the most the longest or the most famous fight of the two. Remember their rematch, Holyfield Tyson 2 was the one where Mike Tyson took a bit of a chunk out of Holyfield here and the whole thing. Everybody knows all about that one. But Holyfield was such a great warrior back then. Like, he came in a little bit thinner, I guess, with everything else, and compared to some of the other heavyweights that were kicking around at the time. But I loved Holyfield, the real deal, Evander Holyfield. And boxing was so great back in the day before MMA took over. And I used to be a bit of a boxing, I don't want to go as far as saying nerd, but I would watch the big fights all the time. And on this day, Holyfield beats Mike Tyson. Yeah, boxing, and they still get really good crowds when there's a big match, but the big match is so few and far between, and you don't know who the big deals are anymore, because it got really corrupt, and the Don King and everything else. But yeah, anyways, I'm starting to ramble a little bit here at 14:20 in the morning. Who do we got for birthday today? Happy 44th birthday to Adam Dunn, born on this day in 1979 in Houston, Texas. Dunn was drafted out of New Caney High School out of Texas in the second round of the 1998 Major League Amateur Draft, 50th overall by the Cincinnati Reds. Dunn made his Major League debut on July 20th, 2001, going 1-for-3 in the Reds' 5-3 loss to the Florida Marlins. But the best was yet to come for Dunn, as he would go on to set a National League rookie record for the most home runs in a month by a rookie with 12. 2004 was the most productive in Dunn's career, where he hit 46 home runs and had 102 RBIs. Dunn was no stranger to striking out, as he led the league 4 times with strikeouts, with 195 in 2004, 168 in 2005, 194 in 2006, and a whopping 222 times in 2012 with the White Sox. Dunn finished his 14-year career with 462 home runs, 1,168 RBIs, 2,379 strikeouts, with stops in Cincinnati, Chicago with the White Sox, Washington, Arizona, and Oakland. Dunn was inducted into the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame in 2018. That boy didn't mind striking out. He walked a lot too. It was all or nothing with Dunn. He was a strikeout, home run, walk. It's crazy to think that that's what it was. That's what baseball is a lot now. But he was ahead of his time, I guess you could say, with the way baseball's played now and everything else. But anyways, got a lot going on here at 1420 World Headquarters. Thank you very much once again to Nick for joining us yesterday. And then doing the thing today, and then thank you. Make sure you check out the interview we had with the Canucks with Jeff Patterson. Fantastic show. The guy was such a professional, and Nick was great too. Later on today, I got an interview with Kyle Cushman of The Score. He's the associate hockey news editor for The Score and everything else. So that should be a good talk. Talk about the Leafs, see how that's going. Should be a lot of fun talking. And I don't know if we're going to bash the Leafs, but I got my opinions of what's going on with that team. So that should be a lot of fun to talk some Maple Leafs hockey. Old Jake, he's keeping us busy. Old Jake, the intern, he's keeping me busy here at 1420 World Headquarters. We appreciate all the work that he does for us. And then me and Dave are recording tonight. Dave's off the IL, ready to go, ready to flap his gums as only Dave can do on Thursday night. We usually get into it a little bit. I don't know how much Dave's going to get into it, because he's been ill and everything else, but we'll try to entertain the masses anyways. That's all I got for this morning. We'll talk to you guys all tomorrow. And remember, it doesn't matter where you are, it's who you're with. Have a good day, folks, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast. 4 beer with sports talk and a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Let's get into it.